The death toll continues to rise in Japan following Thursday's deadly earthquake and tsunami. Hundreds of people are confirmed dead, but a government official says the death toll could be more than 1,000. Teams are searching for hundreds of missing people, and tonight 5 million homes are without power and 1 million people have no water. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Laura Yamada. Pamela Young has the night off. Just this afternoon, another aftershock shook the country, and tonight there is another potential catastrophe. An explosion at one of 5 nuclear power plants have left many fearing a nuclear meltdown. And just seconds ago, the AP reported a Japanese official is reporting a partial meltdown is likely underway at a second reactor. ABC's Diana Alviar is in Narita, Japan.
After a desperate struggle to stabilize its damaged nuclear reactors, the Japanese government declared success. But experts say a meltdown in at least one of them is a very real possibility.
You could lose control of these reactors, not be able to maintain the pressure in the reactor itself, and could cause this reactor and perhaps others to go critical.
Witnesses reported hearing an explosion. Steam could be seen pouring from the area. A building housing the Fukushima reactor had collapsed. Conflicting reports soon emerged over the risks of increased radiation. While Japanese officials announced radiation and pressure levels were decreasing, the evacuation area continued to widen. Officials said 10 kilometers or 20 kilometers away is safe, but the radiation may change and go out wider. It's very disturbing. The 8.9 magnitude quake and ensuing tsunami washed away entire towns. Bodies are coming ashore. Hundreds more are missing. Survivors told harrowing stories. I had a neighbor shouting, "A tsunami is coming." I got out of the house and saw the tsunami approaching. The Japanese military has deployed 50,000 troops to the worst-hit areas, searching for survivors amid the ruins. They will be joined by international crews, including teams from the U.S. There has been cause for joy. This father and daughter were rescued and reunited, a rare scene amid the sadness.
To give you some perspective about the concerns about the Fukushima facility, consider this. 3 Mile Island was a level 5 status, Chernobyl a level 7. Right now, Fukushima is rated a level 4 status, but officials said that could be upgraded. Diana Alviar, ABC News, Narita, Japan.
The U.S. government has sent 3 urban search and rescue teams from the U.S. They've deployed to Misawa, Japan. The bottom line is continue to monitor the event and update as warranted.
We talked with State Deputy Civil Defense Director Ed Teixeira this afternoon. He says they've taken no formal action locally as to the possible effects Japan's nuclear situation might have on Hawaii and surrounding areas. But they're in what they call an awareness stage. On the federal level, he says U.S. search and rescue teams will arrive in Misawa, an Air Force base close to the devastated areas, tomorrow morning. He says there were U.S. citizens at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, but all have been evacuated safely. All right, now for some perspective on the impact a nuclear reactor meltdown might bring, University of Hawaii professor Dr. Ken Kipnis. And we just heard seconds ago from the Associated Press of a partial meltdown being likely at a second reactor. Obviously, a lot of concerns out there. What's on your mind?
Well, the first thing that occurs to me, my field is ethics, is the huge responsibility associated with managing and overseeing catastrophe-prone technologies like nuclear reactors and like the BP oil derrick in the Gulf, like the Bhopal chemical plant owned by Union Carbide. All of these technologies pose great risks, and they require that those that operate them measure up to the very highest standards of responsibility. Now, I can't say anything about whether those standards were met in Japan, but that would be the first thing that I would want to look at.
So I think the big question on people's minds here, a growing concern obviously, is what the potential threat might be here in Hawaii.
Yeah. Well, here we can look back at things like 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, and what those events teach us is that in the event you have a release of radioactive elements erupting out of an out-of-control nuclear facility, what happens is that stuff will enter the atmosphere as particles and as gases, and depending on the weather, okay, they will drift away and they may float to the ground. They may be carried hundreds, maybe thousands of miles. And if Hawaii is affected, and there are a whole lot of reasons why that might not happen, but if it's affected, we wouldn't see people rushing to the hospitals. Instead, over the next few years, 10, 20, we would see an increased incidence of certain kinds of cancers and maybe other conditions as well, birth defects that could be traced to this particular incident.
You know, and I think that's what's so tough for everybody. The tsunami warning situation, a great example too. That this is not a perfect science, despite all the research we have, despite all the technology we have. There are so many variables involved here. This is not something we can say, hey, this might happen tomorrow, this might happen next week.
There are huge amounts of uncertainty here. A, we don't know exactly what's happening in Japan. Okay. B, we don't know what's going to happen. And C, even if the worst case scenario does occur, okay, we don't know how that's going to affect people in Hawaii. It depends on the wind, it depends on the weather, it depends upon the scale of the disaster.
You've heard already, though, what some people in Japan are taking, the steps they're taking, understandably, to try and keep themselves safe.
Right. Radioactive iodine will increase the likelihood of thyroid cancer. But if you take ordinary iodine pills and you're exposed to radioactive iodine, the theory is that you'll be less likely to contract cancer over the years.
So something for us to be aware of at this point in time, but not to panic. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Kipnis, for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
A pleasure.
Well, many people are concerned that if our winds will carry this nuclear fallout at some point in time to the islands. KITV4's Amberlynn Hayden is in from Wani today. She's in our studio to talk about that. Amber?
That's right. Thank you, Laura. Well, we were talking to the National Weather Service a little bit earlier today to kind of get a gauge on what that would do. Actually, our surface level winds won't play a part in it at all, whether it's trades or if it's Kona winds. It's mainly this jet stream. You can't really see it on satellite imagery, but it does travel very north of the islands up here. It is in a west to east band where it's moving now. Now, they were saying that if the radiation particulates get up to 30,000 feet, it's very likely it can get caught up in this jet stream, which is moving at 200 miles per hour right now, and it takes up most of this area that we see on our satellite imagery. So it's possible, if it shifts, and it does within a very short-term period, that it could cause some effect for Hawaii. But at this point, at least for the next day or two, it seems that Hawaii is safe. Again, that's for the next day or two, very short-term with the Pacific jet stream, because it does change rapidly. Now, for our winds, because so many people have been asking about it, again, it will not have an effect on that, whether it comes through or not. But we do have some trades to enjoy. It looks like your second half of the weekend will shape up nicely, much like today. More details on the full forecast a little bit later. Laura, back to you.
All right.